Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
I've always known I was the boring one, the serious daughter, the one who kept to herself a little too much and never really played along with the family's chaotic performance of togetherness. When we were younger, my sister Jenna would light up every room with her big laugh, fake stories, and wild confidence, while I'd sit in the corner with a book, wondering how everyone else could be so loud without ever saying anything that mattered. I didn't resent her for it, at least not at first. I just thought I was different. Maybe more grounded. Maybe more boring. But I was fine with that until the day I realized that different meant not invited. It started with a family group chat I barely check, because it's always just baby pictures from cousins I haven't seen in a decade or political memes that make me grind my teeth. But this time, it was different. My mom, Linda, dropped a message that said, "Big news. We're going to Maui next month." Then came a flurry of beach gifs, champagne emojis, and 36 variations of OMG can't wait. I assumed it was just a retirement treat for her and Dad, Roy. Maybe one of those bucket list things. But then Jenna chimed in. "Can't wait to sip my ties with my favorite people." And that's when the itch started behind my eyes. I scrolled up and read the message again, slower this time. And then I asked the question I probably already knew the answer to. "Who's all going?" Silence. Then, 2 minutes later, Mom replied, "Just the four of us. Jenna, Cody, me, and Dad. We didn't think you'd want to come. Different vibe, you know?" That was it. No punctuation. No apology. Just, different vibe, you know? At first, I laughed. Like, out loud. A sharp, dry laugh that bounced off my kitchen walls and startled my dog. Because what the hell does that even mean? Different vibe? Was this a beach trip or a goddamn casting call for a reality show? I closed the group chat without replying and stood there staring at nothing in particular. I've built my whole life around not needing anyone. I run 3 rental properties, manage 5 more for clients, and live in a house I paid off by 40. I cook for myself, travel when I want, and sleep well at night. But none of that stopped a tiny voice in my chest from whispering, "Why not you?" It's a question I've heard 1,000 times, but never out loud. The thing is, they think I'm distant because I like my own company. What they don't see is that after 30 years of being the one who made the plans, paid her share early, and kept her mouth shut when people flaked or mooched, I just got tired. Tired of being the one they never had to worry about. Tired of earning respect in ways they didn't recognize. I stopped showing up to things because they stopped seeing me when I was there. Still, I wouldn't let them see they'd gotten under my skin. I sent a thumbs up emoji and muted the chat. If they didn't want me in Maui, then hell, I didn't want to be in Maui either. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at my laptop to finalize a lease agreement for one of my vacation homes. I told myself, "You're not hurt. You're just annoyed." But of course, I was lying. It wasn't until a week later that the real kick in the teeth landed. I got a photo from Mom. It was clearly meant for someone else, probably my aunt or one of her book club ladies. The caption read, "Our resort in Maui. Jenna looks like a movie star." And yeah, Jenna looked great. Always does. White sun hat, gold sandals, oversized sunglasses, posing like she's in a catalog. But behind her, there it was. The stucco archway. The ceramic number plate on the side. The hand-painted mural I commissioned last year to make the entryway pop in photos. My jaw actually dropped. That was my property. I zoomed in just to be sure. Yep. That was the house I bought through my holding company, Pacific Turnkey LLC. I'd listed it exclusively through a third-party concierge service that handled high-end bookings for influencers and TikTok travel families. I checked the booking system, my heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. And sure enough, there was a week-long reservation under the name J. Kingston, submitted through a referral account tied to, wait for it, Cody's college buddy, Trevor. So not only had they excluded me, not only had they decided I didn't fit the vibe, they were also staying in my damn house. And they didn't even know it. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I didn't send a snarky message or post a meme or do anything else they'd expect. I just sat there, holding my wine glass like it was the last solid thing in the room. Because I knew something they didn't. The lock codes, the calendar, the concierge, the contracts, they all ran through me. And suddenly I had options. So many quiet, satisfying, legal options. And that was when the idea started to form. A petty, poetic little plan. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to let the vibe return the favor. There's a kind of sharp, delicious tension in knowing something that the people around you don't, like holding a grenade behind your back while everyone else keeps talking about their vacation tan lines and mojitos, totally unaware that the countdown has already started. I sat there for nearly an hour after realizing my parents, my sister Jenna, and her walking cliché of a husband Cody were currently sunbathing, grilling shrimp, and drinking expensive rum in the backyard of a house that I not only owned, but had personally restored from termite-infested garbage into the polished beachfront paradise they now thought was a gift from the universe. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just let it wash over me, the absurdity, the betrayal, and under all of it, the rising tide of something I hadn't felt in a long, long time: control. The house, Villa Cahill, had been mine for almost 3 years. I'd bought it through a limited liability company I formed under my personal trust, smartly shielded from public view, and operated through a premium concierge service that handled everything from guest screening to luxury-level amenities. The reason I did that was simple. I didn't want my name on anything my family could recognize, not because I was hiding something, but because I knew exactly the kind of attention that would attract. They never respected my business, called it playing landlord, as if owning property in a resort town was the same thing as charging rent on a college apartment over a pizza shop. If they knew how many homes I managed now, they'd choke on their kombucha. Still, this was a whole new level of gall. The booking came through 2 months prior under the name J. Kingston, which rang 0 bells. But thanks to my CRM system, I could trace it back to the original referral account that submitted the guest application. And guess whose name was linked to the referral ID? Trevor Marks. Cody's frat buddy from Arizona State, the one who once tried to pitch me on a pyramid scheme in my own kitchen while drinking straight from my expensive wine bottle like he was doing me a favor. I remembered him clearly. Always had that twitchy energy of someone who smelled too strongly of protein powder and desperation. I dug deeper, tracing the payment method through the concierge agency. It had been prepaid with a credit card registered to a shell company that, again, linked right back to Trevor. They'd gotten clever, trying to hide the connection, probably thinking I'd never know. But when you've spent 15 years managing other people's money and protecting your own assets, you learn how to smell a lie through 3 layers of middlemen and an alias. By the time I was finished connecting the dots, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just cold, numb, focused. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to text Jenna something passive-aggressive or call my mother crying. I was going to handle it the way I've always handled things, efficiently, quietly, and with finality. But first, I needed to take a moment to truly appreciate the absurdity. They really booked my own property without knowing. It was like watching a snake tie itself into a knot. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. They flew out on March 32nd, I said to myself, not even realizing what I'd said until my dog tilted his head in confusion. March 32nd. A date that doesn't exist, just like the version of my family who pretends they don't need me but still ends up drinking cocktails on my furniture. Maybe I meant March 22nd, but honestly, at this point, it felt like they'd flown out of a reality that had no use for logic or dates. I didn't act right away. I waited another 12 hours. Let them settle in. Let Jenna post her day 1 pool selfie with the caption, "Manifesting more of this energy." Let Cody post his shirtless boomerang of the sunrise like he discovered the damn Pacific Ocean himself. Let my parents soak in the jacuzzi, probably toasting to quality family time, while conveniently ignoring the daughter they cut out like a crooked coupon. Then I logged into the property management portal and submitted an ownership override. Reason? Owner exercising discretionary clause due to scheduling conflict. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The concierge company handles everything professionally and discreetly, which is why I pay them an ungodly monthly fee. Within the hour, they'd called the guest number on file, informed them of the error, and offered a generous refund along with an apology. The catch? They needed to vacate within 24 hours. New owner client arriving. Unfortunate scheduling mix-up. Happens all the time in this industry. They wouldn't even be mad at the company. They'd be confused, inconvenienced, maybe embarrassed, but none of it would lead back to me. Not directly, anyway. Which was perfect. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And the best part? I'd get to watch the fallout in real time, one filtered Instagram story at a time. It's funny how fast silence becomes a weapon when you've spent your whole life being expected to explain yourself, smooth things over, or be the bigger person in rooms where your feelings were never even on the table. The morning after I pulled the trigger on the ownership override, I woke up early, poured myself a cup of coffee, and checked the property dashboard like it was a stock portfolio I knew was about to explode. Sure enough, the concierge had handled it beautifully. The family had been informed, the exit scheduled, and the follow-up email sent out with all the usual corporate fluff about guest experience and unexpected changes in availability. They had no clue it came from me. That was the magic in it. The best revenge is the kind that leaves people confused instead of angry, the kind that makes them question whether they ever really understood the rules of the game. I didn't get a call. Not from my mom, not from my dad, not even from Jenna, who I expected to come in hot with some dramatic voice note or a stream of texts demanding to know what was going on. Instead, I got silence, and I gave it right back. I blocked every number. I left the family group chat without a word, not even a middle finger or a meme or one of those cryptic quotes about energy and boundaries. I just disappeared like fog in sunlight. And let me tell you, the power in that silence was better than any scream I could have let loose. The real kicker came 2 days later when I was out back watering my succulents and noticed the pet carrier still sitting by my garage door. It hadn't even clicked until then. My sister had left their dog, Scout, with me for the week because obviously, the trustworthy, responsible, always available big sister was the perfect person to watch over their designer labradoodle while they went off sipping overpriced coconut cocktails on stolen property. Scout was sitting on a cushioned pad like a king, wagging his tail, probably the only innocent soul in this whole messy ecosystem of bullshit. He was a sweet dog, annoying in that way expensive dogs are, high-maintenance coat, raw food diet, special shampoo that costs more than mine, but sweet. And now, with the whole vacation unraveling and my number suddenly out of service, he was still with me. For once, they needed me, and I was under no obligation to pretend I gave a damn. At first, I thought I'd just keep him for the week, feed him like normal, and wait for anyone, to come crawling back with an apology or a plan. But the silence from their end was starting to itch. Not a single person had shown up at my house, not even a knock on the door, not a note in the mailbox, not a panicked email asking about the dog. It was almost as if they were too embarrassed to admit what had happened, too proud to face me even when their pet, their beloved fur baby, was sitting in my sunroom, living his best life. And that's when the pettiness in me, the part they always underestimated, decided to turn the dial up a notch. I called a luxury pet spa in the valley, the kind of place with cucumber water, aromatherapy, and private grooming suites that looked more like boutique hotel rooms than kennels. They had a package called the Platinum Pup Experience that included daily massages, fresh-baked dog biscuits, organic meals, and twice-daily playtime with a personal handler. It was ridiculous. Obnoxious. Perfect. I handed over Scout with a smile and handed them the credit card number Jenna had used the last time she begged me to buy dog food while she was out of town. Still had the info saved in my online grocery account. Was that wrong? Maybe. But honestly, it felt like justice. Small, absurd justice served on a silver tray lined with velvet. 3 days into Scout's luxury retreat, I started getting notifications from the spa about his progress. He was thriving. Better mood. Healthier appetite. The spa manager even sent a photo of him lounging on a plush dog couch in a silk robe, tongue out like he'd been rescued from peasant life. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. For once, one of them was in a place they actually deserved to be pampered, contained, and completely unaware of who was footing the bill. Then, finally it came. An email. Subject line, question. Just 4 words inside. No greeting. No signature. No emojis or passive-aggressive guilt trips. Just, did you do this? I stared at the screen for a full minute, feeling the weight of those 4 little words press down on my chest like someone had finally noticed the storm gathering overhead. The silence had cracked, just a little. The suspicion had bloomed. They were starting to realize that what felt like a coincidence might not be one. That maybe, just maybe, the daughter who never made a fuss had stopped playing her part in the family theater and started writing her own damn script. I didn't reply. I didn't even open it again. I just let it sit there, marked unread, the digital version of a door slammed quietly shut. Because now they were scrambling. Now they were guessing. Now they were afraid. And I hadn't even really started. I had known the peace wouldn't last forever, but I'll admit, I thought they'd simmer in silence a little longer before trying to claw their way back into the narrative like the dramatic side characters they've always been. I underestimated their vanity, and that's on me. Cody was the first to break. Of course he was a man who built his entire identity around shirtless carousels, protein powder, and fake motivational quotes couldn't sit in silence long enough to let a bruise heal. No, he needed an audience. And so, in the most Cody move possible, he went online, a moody little reel of ocean waves paired with that godawful lo-fi trap music, overlaid with the words, "Sometimes your biggest enemy is disguised as family. Don't let jealous energy block your blessings." I didn't even need to hear the audio to feel my blood pressure spike. He never named me, of course, cowards rarely do. He relied on implication, on soft-focused drama, and the hope that his audience of half-bought followers would eat it up without asking questions. And sure enough, the comments rolled in fast. Praying for you guys. People are so fake these days. Cut those toxic ties, King. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so predictable. But then Jenna jumped in, and that's when it turned from laughable to venomous. Her story was a full-blown, soft-lit selfie monologue in her car, fake tears sparkling just under her lash extensions like she'd been rehearsing it for days. "You think you know someone," she said, voice trembling just enough to seem real. "But when you're finally happy, finally vibing, suddenly they can't stand to see it. Some people only want to be in your life if they get to control the narrative. It's sad, honestly." Then she looked straight into the camera, paused for dramatic effect, and said, "But I believe in karma." And that's all I'll say. I watched it twice, not because I was shocked, but because I couldn't quite believe the absolute nerve, the balls it takes to call someone toxic after you steal from them and vacation in their house without ever once saying thank you or even asking permission. And yet, despite their vague subtweets and performative sadness, I still hadn't heard a single thing directly from my parents. That was the part that got me. I'd expected my mom to at least call, to at least send some half-ass message trying to see both sides, or deflect with a casserole recipe. But all I got was silence. Until, of course, the rest of the family started poking their heads out like prairie dogs sniffing for gossip. My Aunt Marlene texted me, asking if I was okay, and then very casually added, "Heard some weird stuff. Something about you kicking your folks out of a house?" That was the first. Then came 2 cousins, one of my dad's church friends, and a woman I barely recognized from a family reunion in Florida 12 years ago, all with versions of the same question, all pretending they weren't dying for details. The narrative was spreading, and not because I was talking. It was because Jenna and Cody couldn't resist turning their inconvenience into content, and now the story was escaping the internet and crawling into the living rooms of relatives who had no business knowing anything about my life in the first place. But here's the kicker, no one knew the truth. Not really. They all assumed I was some bitter daughter who pulled a power move because I wasn't invited on a vacation. They had no idea about the property, about the LLC, about the booking fraud, about the fake names and credit cards and layered deception. All they had were whispers and drama, the kind of thing people love to chew on when their own lives are too boring to taste. So I decided to let the truth trickle out, slow and deliberate like a leaky faucet you can't ignore. First, I updated my LinkedIn for the first time in 3 years, added a few tasteful posts about growth in vacation property markets, dropped a soft flex line about managing a portfolio of 9 rental properties across 2 states. No bragging, just facts. Then I made a public listing change on one of my luxury homes, switching the booking agency to a more recognizable platform, something I knew Jenna's followers would see eventually. I wasn't waving it in their faces. I was just opening the blinds a little, letting the light in. And sure enough, it worked. Within 2 days, I got a text from a cousin I hadn't heard from since college. Wait, do you actually own those houses? The more they realized what I'd built, quietly, without help, without applause, and most importantly, without their permission, the more frantic their energy became. You could feel it buzzing in the air like static before a storm. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I decided to drive out to my parents' place to drop off the spare key to their old condo, the one I'd been helping manage before all this mess exploded. I didn't call ahead. Just wanted to be done with the gesture, wipe the last bit of logistical obligation off my plate. But as I pulled into the driveway, my foot hit the brake hard, because parked right there in front of the garage, sleek and smug as hell, was Cody's Tesla. At first, I thought maybe they were just visiting. Maybe it was just bad timing. But then I looked again and something inside me shifted. I recognized the house, of course, it used to be mine. Not mine in the possessive, I grew up here way, but mine in the legal, document signed, monthly rent deposited sense. Because after my parents downsized and couldn't afford their retirement community's full cost, I stepped in, bought the property under my company, and let them lease it back at half the going rate. They never told Jenna. Never told Cody. Probably because it would have bruised their pride to admit that the daughter they dismissed as cold and difficult was the one keeping a roof over their heads. And now here they were, letting Cody park in my driveway like he belonged there. The deed was still in my name. And I was starting to wonder if maybe it was time to remind them what that actually meant. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace or closure or mutual understanding, but from a long, cold decision to be done not loudly, not dramatically, but so thoroughly that even the echoes don't bother showing up afterward. I sat there in my parked car across the street from the house I technically owned, the house my parents lived in, the house now graced by Cody's smug, overleased Tesla as if he had put a single damn dollar into the down payment. My hands were steady. My pulse was calm. I wasn't shaking with rage or pacing like a vengeful sister about to blow up a family dinner. I was just breathing, slowly, intentionally, like I had been waiting for this moment, and finally, after years of biting my tongue, shrinking myself to fit into their crooked little family frame, I was exactly where I needed to be. The laptop booted up on the passenger seat beside me, and within seconds I was logged into the property management dashboard. Everything was still under my control, neatly organized by property name, leaseholder, payment status, and, most importantly in this case, access settings. I scrolled to the entry marked Oak Ridge Residence, Tenancy, Linda and Roy, and hovered over the line that read Access, Active. There was no ceremony in this, no dramatic soundtrack or big speech. I didn't need a confrontation or a teary-eyed breakdown where someone finally admitted I'd been right all along. I just clicked the drop-down, selected Terminate Tenancy, effective immediately, and then pressed the final button, Disable Key Fob Access. Across the street, The sun hit the windows of the house just right, and for a second it looked almost peaceful. But then the front door swung open, and out stumbled Cody in nothing but his gym shorts, holding his phone in one hand and looking confused as hell. He tried the front door again. Pulled it. Pushed it. Knocked. Looked around. Knocked again, this time with more force. The handle didn't budge. I disabled all digital locks, sent an automated message to the concierge line to notify the tenants that their access had been revoked per contractual clause. The wording was dry and professional, owner-initiated termination due to violation of terms and misrepresentation of occupancy. That line had a certain sting to it if you knew what it meant. Cody, of course, had no idea what was going on. I watched from behind my tinted windows as he made a phone call, then gestured in frustration at the house, then started yelling toward the second-floor window like someone inside could magically fix it. I knew my parents were home. I knew they were probably inside that kitchen I'd renovated for them, standing in confused silence as the locks beeped red instead of green. My mother probably still in her slippers, my father squinting at the panel like it was a broken remote. I didn't care. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't even flinch. Because the thing is, they'd built this moment themselves, one casual dismissal at a time, one insult wrapped in politeness, one selfish choice disguised as just how things are. I let the scene play out for a few more minutes before reversing slowly out of the neighborhood, leaving them locked out of comfort, out of assumption, out of the lie they'd lived in for years, the one where I was reliable but invisible, where I cleaned up behind them but never called them out, where I was useful but not equal. Later that evening, the messages started coming in like clockwork. First an email from my dad's personal address with the subject line, "What happened?" followed by a vague apology about how things might have gotten out of hand, and could we talk soon. Then came Jenna's text, which I only saw through the third-party number she tried to use, and it was exactly as empty as I expected. "This isn't like you. Let's not make this bigger than it is." No responsibility. No ownership. Just a soft tap at the door of my patience, hoping I hadn't changed as much as they feared I had. But I had. I really had. A week passed, and they started escalating. Messages from mutual friends. A voicemail from Aunt Marlene asking if I could find it in my heart to mend this. Someone even had the nerve to send me a link to a sermon on forgiveness, like that was the key to unlocking this mess, as if forgiveness was the same as letting them back in, like nothing ever happened. I didn't respond to a single one. Not because I was being cruel. Not because I didn't hear them. But because I had nothing left to say. I used to think family meant loyalty, that invisible string that ties you together even when the people on the other end stop earning it. But I've come to understand that, for a lot of people, family just means expectation. The expectation that you'll show up no matter what. That you'll smile when you're hurting. That you'll keep giving long after they've stopped deserving. And I just stopped showing up for their version of me. The version that tolerated everything and asked for nothing. I haven't closed the door permanently. I haven't cut them off with some grand announcement. I haven't posted anything or spoken out or named names. I just stopped playing along. Stopped helping people who wouldn't help me. Stopped hiding the fact that I've built something real while they were busy performing joy and borrowing homes they didn't own. Some nights I wonder if I went too far. If maybe I should have just confronted them face to face, said my piece, given them a final warning before pulling the plug. But then I remember how many times I waited for an apology that never came. How many holidays I left feeling smaller than when I arrived. How many moments I swallowed my truth because it was easier than causing a scene. So, maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe it was just math. Cause and effect. Years of imbalance finally correcting itself. Or maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of how power shifts in families that never really respected you until you reminded them who holds the keys. And this time, I'm not giving them back.